Today's session, I'll be talking a little bit about the application process. I'll be talking about how you can customize your degree a little bit, and kind of going into your questions at the very end. So it's a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to what we'll be talking about, but I think the title slide says everything we need to know about what the presentation will cover. Really, it's going to be about how you can get to U of T. Oh, hey, Cameron, thanks for joining us. I do remember. So we'll be talking about how you can get to U of T, how you can build your degree at U of T. Very little, like at this point, you don't need to know a ton of information around building your degree, but I think it's good to know the options that you have in front of you. And then from there, we'll go into any questions and answers. So I'll have my colleague, Kiara, joining a little bit later, and we'll talk about your questions. We're being asked in the Q&A, will this recording be available, or will this webinar be available at some point? Typically, we post it about a week or two after we've been able to go through and kind of edit all of this chatter out. It gets posted to our Discover website. Discover.utoronto.ca is usually where you'll find recordings of previous sessions and even some professional recordings that we've done. Great. Wow. It's great to see people from everyone. So I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks that are watching from the Eastern time zone, from the Pacific time zone, and from the other side of the world. I'm so glad that you're learning a little bit more about the University of Toronto, and you've decided to learn a little bit about the University of Toronto. If you were not in Natasha's previous session or our previous session, a couple housekeeping things to know. On the dashboard, you will see a closed captioning button. If you require closed captioning, please do go ahead and turn that on so that you can use it. We will be doing Q&A at the very end of the session, so I ask you to think about your questions, but maybe hold on to them since a lot of the materials I'll cover. And when we are going through questions, unfortunately, with the amount of folks watching today, we won't be able to go into really specific details. So I can't tell you the specific requirement for a specific program at a specific campus for your specific part of the world, but I'm happy to try to address all of the kind of bigger, broader, sweeping questions that everyone might need to know and might have questions about. So answers that can apply to many. Now, I want to say this is a jam-packed day. We have lots of sessions coming up even after this. So hang on to your questions. If you don't get them answered in this session, there will be other opportunities, and there are always opportunities to connect with us, even outside of Fall Campus Day. So with that, I'll ask Team U of T in the background to turn off the chat so I can stop being distracted by it. Hello, Galaxy. Thanks for watching. Yeah, okay, why don't we get started? So again, my name is Floyd Nerona. I'm part of the recruitment team here at the University of Toronto, and this session is a little bit more admissions-based. It's a little bit more about getting to the University of Toronto, the application process, and then we'll be talking about customizing your degree a little bit. So if you watched Natasha's first session, it was a really good recap of what University of Toronto has to offer. So I'll do a really quick, brief overview for anyone that wasn't there in that session, but I'm seeing that we have similar numbers to what we had in the first session. So I hope many of you have seen this already. If you have, you're the experts now, so I won't go into too much detail. So first of all, you know that we have 3 incredible campuses that span the Greater Toronto Area. St. George being that central campus, the oldest and founding campus, U of T Mississauga in the west, about 30 kilometers west, really gorgeous green campus, about a mid-sized campus when it comes to the number of students, and U of T Scarborough in the east, again, about a mid-sized campus, about 30 kilometers, I should say, or 30 minutes east of the downtown core. Again, a mid-sized campus, about 13 to 14,000 students, lots of gorgeous green space. Now, the great thing about the 3 U of T campuses is that no matter which one you decide is the best fit for you, you graduate with the same U of T degree. You graduate or you get the same U of T quality and excellence, no matter which one you find is ideal for you. So when you're deciding on U of T, when you're deciding on campuses, pick based on maybe what is a good fit for you, what kind of environment you want to be in, and of course, the unique features of a particular campus, so the programming that they offer, and any of the pieces that kind of mold and fit to your personality. From Natasha's presentation, I'm sure you recognize this slide. So when you're looking at the University of Toronto, we are multiple communities, and there are multiple ways to look at the communities at U of T. So one are the physical campuses. The other way to consider the communities at U of T are the academic or learning communities. So we offer arts, business, and science, engineering, architecture and visual studies, kinesiology, and music. Now, engineering, architectural and visual studies, kinesiology, and music, those four are specific to the St. George campus. So if you are interested in taking any of these programs, you'll only find them downtown at U of T or at the St. George campus. Arts, business, science, on the other hand, is actually the largest set of programming that U of T offers. And we have programs in arts, business, and science across the three campuses. So if you're interested in studying things like English or history, biology, commerce, computer science, you'll find those across the three campuses at U of T. And the biggest difference between these three especially with programs that are available at all three, would be the physical location. So biology being taught at U of T Scarborough or at U of T Mississauga or at the St. George campus in the Faculty of Arts and Science is going to be very similar in programming to kind of all three of them. The quality will be the same. So the actual physical location is the major difference between the three campuses when it comes to those programs. Now, when you kind of drill down a little bit deeper, you will find that there are some programs that are unique to each particular campus. And I think that's one of the benefits of U of T is having the flexibility to take programs that are more general across any of the three campuses, or finding programs that are unique to your interest. And we can do that based on the amount of programs that we offer, over 700 different program options that are available in a variety of different program styles, like majors or minors or specialists, again, to fit your personality, your interest, your ability, and allows you to build a degree that's fit for you. Now, again, as I was saying, programs like English, biology, computer science, you'll find across all three, but some will be unique to each particular campus. Now, when we're talking about program types, I know this question comes up a lot. So students at U of T typically take about 20 credits. I should say students at U of T that are not in engineering typically take about 20 credits to graduate. And how you structure those credits will be your program structure. So this is where specialists, majors, and minors come up. So I mentioned we have 700 different program options, and those program options are made up of over 10,000 courses that you get to choose from. Now, you're not going to take all 10,000 of those courses, but you'll be able to mix and match to get a bit of flexibility within the courses that you're taking. Now, each course at U of T is worth either a half credit or a full credit. A half credit goes the length of a semester. So you start in September and you finish in December. That would be half a credit, and a whole credit goes the length of the school year. So it would start in September and finish in April. So students typically mix and match these halves and wholes to create those, or to build out to those 20 credits. And most students are taking 5 credits over 4 years. Just one moment. I realized that I left sound down on my computer, which is quite distracting. So just give me one moment here. Okay. So students will take about 20 credits over the course of their 4 years, and students are doing 5 courses or 5 credits per year in 4 years to complete their studies. So now how you structure these credits becomes your program structure or your degree types. So if you decide you want to just focus in one particular area of study, you want to eat, breathe, live, history, for example, you could specialize in that area where the vast majority of your courses, about 2/3 of your courses, are in the field of history. The rest are leftovers for electives and to fill out the rest of your degree. Now, if you decide, you know what, I like multiple things, I'd like to do history and biology, which you can absolutely do at U of T. You could do about a third of your degree in history, another third of your degree in biology, and a little bit left over again for your electives. Now you'll notice I said 2/3 for a specialist and a third and a third. Again, it is 2/3. So it's the same amount of work, you're just splitting it over two different areas of study. Now, lastly, a minor is the smallest kind of structure that's available. It's about a sixth of your degree when you're kind of looking at it compared to majors and specialists. So students will either do a single major, or sorry, a single specialist, a double major, or a major with two minors. In this situation, a minor paired with another minor is the same amount of work as a major, and so matches the amount of work you'd be doing in a double major or in a specialist. So no matter what your focus is, we encourage students to explore things really widely. So I, for example, did a major in sociology with a minor in religion and another minor in Indigenous studies. I wanted to get a really wide scope of the world. I knew from an early age that I was meant to be a generalist and not a specialist in life. So I kind of played towards my interests. You can definitely double major in biochemistry and something like African studies with a minor in archaeology. If you're, hoping to go on and work in museums, performing things like chemical analysis of artifacts, or you could pursue something like a specialist in economics with a minor in art history, then work in market research at a commercial art gallery. Engineering students can actually pick from about 21 certificates and engineering specific minors that include music performance, artificial intelligence, or even pursue an arts and science minor. So even though you're an engineer, you can take classes in minors within the Faculty of Arts and Science at the St. George campus. Now, students in music, kinesiology, and architectural and visual studies can also add to their degrees with those minors in the Faculty of Arts and Science. So there literally are thousands of combinations that you can do to design a degree that no one else has done before, and something that's unique to you based on your interests and your passions. Now, with all of this said, students don't decide their specialist, their majors, and their minors until the end of your first year. So you have first year to kind of explore what's out there, figure out what is the best fit for you, and then take courses in that first year that'll lead you down that path. Applying from high school, you still need to know or have an idea of what direction you want to go in. You don't have to know exactly what you want to do. That's exactly what first year is for. Now, the first step in exploring programs at UT is to look at program areas. We refer to them as admissions categories or admission categories. An admission category is a broad set of fields like life sciences or humanities that encompasses multiple programs of study. So biochemistry and psychology, for example, would fall within the life sciences, or history and philosophy would fall within the humanities. Again, you don't have to declare specific programs of study during the application stage. So when you apply, you're not applying specifically to biochemistry, you'd be applying to the admission category of life science. Just the same, you wouldn't be applying to history, you'd be applying to the admission category of the humanities. Oh, I think I jumped ahead a little bit on my slide. So here is a quick look at some of the more popular or more common admission categories across the three campuses. So as you'll see, humanities, life sciences, computer science are available across the three campuses. Journalism is specific to U of T Scarborough. There's the green color coding. Forensic science, for example, is again specific to U of T Mississauga with the orange color coding, and engineering science is only available at the St. George campus. So again, you have a ton of flexibility, you have a ton of choice when you're getting into your first year, but coming in from high school, you don't have to have exact decisions made just yet. Now, one of the questions earlier, I believe it was Jasmine who asked, kind of related to this, if I can find the question, I don't think I will, but I think they were asking something around why you might need to know kind of a direction you want to go into and how you can kind of structure your degree. So admission categories are really, really key. And one of my favorite things about first year at U of T or applying to U of T is that you're not locked into a particular program just yet. When you start your first year, you'll have, oh yes, she asked, how does the being admitted to a particular area help in selecting courses or going into a specific field of entry? So when you start your first year, you'll have the opportunity or you'll have what's called enrollment priority to your admission category. So students admitted to life sciences get first pick at courses in the life sciences. Once those students have selected their courses, we then open life sciences up to the rest of the Faculty of Arts and Science, or U of T Mississauga or U of T Scarborough. So students that are not life science or admitted to life science can then go in and take those programs. Again, we talked about how you can mix and match programs from a variety of different admission categories. So that really helps students kind of figure out what direction they want to go in, but enrollment priority or being admitted to that particular area guarantees you a seat in that program area, in that admission category of courses that you need for that area. By no means are you limited, again, to your area of interest in first year. So most students register in suitable intro courses for their target field. So if you're hoping to go into life sciences again, but then you can also enroll in courses outside of your field. So if you have interest in geology or history or a language, you're able to go in and select classes after students in those fields have selected their classes. So again, this makes it possible and actually really common for U of T students to discover new passions during their first year. That's kind of what happened to me. I did not apply to sociology from high school. It was a first year class that I took and decided to make that change. Again, this is going to inform your majors, your minors, and your specialists when you declare them at the end of your first year. So I hope that was helpful. I know there were a lot of questions around that portion of it. The next half of this presentation is the nuts and bolts about the application process. My apologies. It was Yasmin, not Jasmine, who asked about being admitted. Thanks for reposting. So let's say you're interested in everything that you've heard from Natasha and myself so far today, and you are ready to apply to U of T. There are a couple of things to know about the application process. For U of T, there are two main portions of the application process, or two main steps. The first step is really simple. It's a pretty bare bones application where we're asking about your biographical information, we're asking about your academic background, your contact information, and that's about it. So really, it can take about 15-20 minutes to complete. We don't need any essays. We don't require we don't require interviews or letters of recommendation or even transcripts at that point in the application. So the very first step, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and it's just who you are, where you're currently studying, what kind of curriculum you're studying in, and then what you'd like to study with us. If you are an Ontario high school student, you would be completing the Ontario OUAC 101 application. So anyone that's graduating from an Ontario high school that's receiving an OSSD, which is the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, you would be using the 101 application. That just means that you're graduating from high school in Ontario, and all of your academic information, all of your marks will come from your guidance counselor through the Ontario University's Application Center and then directly to us. Now, when I say the Ontario University's Application Center, this is a third-party resource that works with universities in Ontario to manage all of the applications to the public universities in Ontario. So all 23 Ontario universities will be on there. Now, students in Ontario, that's the only option. You're applying through the OUAC. You'll get a PIN number from your high school, and once you have that PIN number, you can go in and start working on the application. For everyone else who is outside of Ontario, there are a couple options. Now, Canadians, if you were, actually, let's work through this. Maybe I'll go back. So when it comes to folks that are outside of Ontario, there are a couple options. And you can choose which one is the best fit for you. The counterpart to the OUAC 101 application is the 105 application. And this is for anyone who is outside of an Ontario high school who is interested in applying to the University of Toronto. So the 105 can be used by anyone as long as they're not an Ontario high school student. For folks that are outside of Canada, there is a second option that might be available. So the 105 application is actually used by all Canadian applicants through the Ontario University's Application Center. So if you were applying to other universities, many Canadian students are, if you are currently in Canada, so if you were studying at a school in Canada, you would use the 105. And if you've ever studied in Canada, you would use the OUAC 105 application. Now, for students who are not considering any other universities in Ontario, who are not currently in Canada and have never studied in Canada before, we have a U of T specific international application. So that's the second piece you see there. So this one just gives you the option to apply directly to U of T. It saves you a few dollars in the application. There's no benefit to doing one over the other if you were a student that qualifies for the U of T direct application. So all it is saving you a few dollars between the 105 application. The system looks almost exactly the same. It's just, again, for folks that are not interested in any other universities in Canada, are currently not in Canada, so that's the second no, and they've never studied in Canada before. So that would be the direct application for the direct international application. The one question, sorry, before I move ahead, the one question we get about this, if you are a Canadian who's living abroad and has never studied in Canada, you could still use the international application. So your status in Canada does not have an impact. It's these three specific questions. Alrighty. So when you access either of these applications, either the 101, the OUAC 105, or the direct international application, you can get up to 3 choices at the University of Toronto. How you use those 3 choices is completely up to you. Sometimes students will use those 3 choices if they're considering multiple universities, so the OUAC 101 and 105. If they're considering multiple universities, they might apply to 3 different universities, or if they're only considering U of T, then they could apply 3 times to the University of Toronto. The maximum number of times you can apply to U of T, I should say, is 3. Same thing with the direct international application. You'll get 3 choices at U of T when you're using that application. So how do you potentially apply to U of T up to 3 times? So we've already learned that there are at least 3 divisions at the University of Toronto, or 3 campuses. And we've also learned that within the St. George campus, there are 5 different faculties. So these 5 faculties, plus U of T Mississauga and U of T Scarborough, give you 7 options that you can choose from in your application to U of T. When you're looking at these these areas of study, or these communities that we've talked about already, you'll find within them is where you'll find those admission categories that I was just talking about like 4 slides ago. So within these admission categories, students can select 1 admission category per faculty or campus. So out of these 7 areas, you could select any 3 of the colored slots as long as they are in a different academic division or faculty. So a couple examples of this. Let's say you're interested in computer science. It's a hot one at the moment. Everyone wants to study computer science, except me, because I don't math. So if you were interested in computer science, we have 3 computer science programs at U of T, 1 at the St. George campus, 1 at U of T Mississauga, and 1 at U of T Scarborough. So you could apply once to all 3 of those areas of study. Let's say you're interested in a more performance-based program, a little bit more towards the arts. You could apply to music within the Faculty of Music. You could apply to theater and drama studies at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and visual and performing arts, arts management, and media at the University of Toronto Scarborough. So again, those are 3 different campuses with 3 different programs. Now, let's say you have interests that are all within the St. George campus. Mechanical, let's say it's a more hands-on kind of program that you're looking for. You could apply to mechanical engineering, which is an engineering. You could apply to architectural studies within the Faculty of Architecture, Landscape, and Design. And you could apply to kinesiology and physical education, which is also in a separate faculty. So now that these are in 3 different faculties, you're still able to select them. The only thing you're not able to do is apply to a faculty twice. So let's say you're interested in arts and science, you wanted to do social sciences and humanities, you would pick the one that you're most interested in and apply to that one so that you get that enrollment priority for social science courses. And then you can go in and select the courses you want to do during course selection at a later time. Some programs like engineering, like computer science, Rotman Commerce in the Faculty of Arts and Science, and within the University of Toronto Scarborough, there are a few of them, will allow students to, in the second step of the application process, so we haven't talked about the second step yet, but in the second step, they'll allow students to indicate an alternate admission category they'd like to be considered for as a backup. So if you don't get into your first choice, they would consider you for one of the others. So this means you would still receive only one offer for that application, but you have multiple kind of choices within those fields. Typically, it's the programs that are a little more competitive. So it gives students an extra choice at U of T. Again, you're not getting multiple offers for that. So let's say it's computer science that you're applying to and you did not get into it, you would potentially receive an alternate to one of the other fields that you might be interested in within the Faculty of Arts and Science. I should say on the OUAC application, students would also indicate their college preferences. So Natasha talked about the 7 colleges at the St. George campus. So here you would indicate your 3 college preferences within the Faculty of Arts and Science. They will have a session later today. The Faculty of Arts and Science, I should say, will have a session later today. So that'll be a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about the colleges. There's a ton of information online if you'd like to do a little more research. And I'll ask Team U of T to just post a link in the chat to maybe the Arts and Science page with the colleges, or the URL there, uft.me/your-colleges. So that's kind of the OUAC application, or that first step of the U of T application. Telling us where you're studying, what you'd like to study with us, which kind of took the big chunk of what we were talking about. Once you submit the OUAC application or the direct application to U of T, about a week later, you'll get access to the Join U of T portal. So the Join U of T portal is where all of the important information lives on your application. It's where we'll ask you to complete any additional information that you might need to provide and kind of share all of the details. So for Ontario students, typically your marks are coming directly to us, so you don't have to upload any information other than supplemental applications, and we'll talk about those. And for everyone else, this is where you would submit copies of your transcripts, predicted reports, that kind of stuff. So here's a really quick peek at what your Join U of T portal will look like. This is exactly what the launch page or the login page looks like. Once you log in, you'll see this page. If you click, sorry, it's moving on. If you click it looks like this student was admitted already, but if you click the check your application page, it'll bring you to, we'll skip that, that's a little distracting. So we've clicked the check your application status page, and it'll bring you to this, which will show you all of your program choices at U of T, your admission categories at U of T. So this person, we're learning the lingo. So this person has applied to U of T Mississauga for studies in the social sciences admission category. Now, this is a couple years old, but the platform looks exactly the same. And it looks like this student was admitted. So that's exciting. As you look kind of further down the page, you'll see the required documents, things that we've received from the student. You'll see the required documents, things that we've received from the students, and the date that we receive them. Here's just another quick look at what it might look like for a student outside of Ontario that's applying. So their required documents is a little more, little larger. So if you're comparing, I'm going to step back one slide here. This student only has a supplemental profile that they need to complete. No documents are listed. And as we step forward, we see that this student requires a self-reported grades form, and they're applying from Alberta. So we ask students to complete self-reported grade forms, as well as upload copies of their transcripts and any other supplementary applications. Looking a little bit further down the page, there's the button for uploading documents. It's a simple upload form, and then all of the documents and when they were received by date. Here is what the upload page will look like. So it gives you a description of things that you should be submitting to us. It'll show you what you have already uploaded, and then again, the option at the bottom to upload. A quick view of the self-reported grades form. So students are completing the self-reported grades form, and you can actually go in throughout the school year and update the marks as they become available. So this student looks like a Manitoba student with the 30S courses. So these are grade 11 courses. So you can actually indicate your grade 11 courses from the drop-down list, and then you can go in and input your grade 12 courses. Again, the drop-down has a pretty full list of courses that you can select from. Here's a look at maybe a applicant to engineering. So when they come to their platform or the main screen, you'll notice that there is a button to access the engineering applicant portal. This applicant portal, there we go. So this applicant portal is slightly different than the one that you saw before, and it's specifically for engineering students. Now, this is a little bit of an older screenshot, but it'll be very similar in the year going forward. You'll see that there's a section to complete your program choices within engineering. I mentioned that's where you would indicate your alternate admission categories, and then your supplementary applications, the documents you need to provide, and where you are on the timeline. So recapping the Join U of T portal, it is where all of the important documents live for your application, where you'd have to submit everything, where you'd monitor your application, and where all of the important pieces are posted for students. Speaking of important pieces and required information, for most programs at U of T, it's just your marks that we're considering. So arts, business, or arts, science, which make up that big bulk of programming that we offer. Don't look at anything beyond your marks. So your high school or your academic record. For programs that are on your screen right now, just these programs, they do have supplementary applications, and these supplemental applications take a variety of forms. So they could be a written response, they could be a video response. If you were going into music or theater and drama, I would expect an audition because there is an audition. So the supplemental applications are typically looking to know a little bit more about you and your fit within that program and area of study. These will be linked in your Join U of T portal. And if you want to get a little bit of a head start, be sure to check out the sessions for the divisions that you're interested in so that you can learn more about their supplemental applications later today. Now, for students whose first language is not English and you haven't studied in Canada for at least 4 full years of full-time study, we do have an English language requirement that you would need to meet, or English proficiency requirements. IELTS, TOEFL, Duolingo are the 3 most popular that we see students provide to us. If you're doing IB, you can use that to meet our language requirements as well as the British pattern with the GCEs and the GCSEs. Now, I mentioned I wouldn't be able to go into admission specifics, but I want to give you some brief kind of overviews or the basic information and resources. So to find all of the programs at U of T, all of those 700 programs, uoft.me/700 programs. And today's programming is also going to be a great opportunity to learn about everything that we offer. uoft.me/requirements lets you see your requirements based on your area of study, your system of education. Admission for us is based on your system of education. So if you are a student doing the British pattern, we're going to be looking at your O levels and your A levels. If you are a student in the US, we'd be looking at your US high school transcript. If you've chosen to do SATs, we might consider them, or ACTs. If you are doing APs, we would ask for them to be completed. And if you are an Ontario high school student, we'll be looking at your OSSD marks. So again, we're using your system of education in the application process. Couple things to know, your grade 11 marks are important. The first time we see an application, the first time we look at students' marks, it's based on grade 11 marks. So in the application process, we'll ask to see those grade 11 marks, and we often make offers based on those grade 11 finals that are conditional on you completing your grade 12 year. Speaking of your grade 12 year, here is a quick timeline of what your year is going to look like. So Ontario students who are hoping to apply a little bit earlier, applying in early December and submitting your supplementary applications in mid-December would be perfectly okay. I know I saw some questions about early application. Again, you have to wait for your PIN. This is Ontario students have to wait for a PIN from their school to start the application. And those kind of are distributed at the latest by late November. So you should have them in time to submit them in December, and that would be the earliest that you'd have to do it. For everyone outside of Ontario, November 7th, it's on the bottom there. It's a little bit lower, so I'll say it out loud. Anyone outside of Ontario, November 7th is our early recommended application date. This gives you the runway to provide everything on time and have an idea of everything that you have to send to us. January 12th is the last day to apply to the University of Toronto. Beyond this date, programs might start closing. February 1st is the deadline to submit at least some academic documents to us. The earlier you submit, the better. So if you're submitting in December, that's probably the best for to allow us to start reviewing applications because we start releasing offers. If you're looking at the very end of the timeline, we start releasing offers as early as February. So students that have submitted all of their documents by the end of December have that information in so that we can review it in January and release offers in February. One thing to note, we do offer residence across the 3 campuses, and it is guaranteed for all first years entering their first year studies. So March 31st is the date to indicate interest. There's no financial commitment at that point. Last thing I'll say before we move to questions is about scholarships. Everyone that applies to U of T is automatically considered for our entrance scholarships. So the 2 main entrance scholarships, the U of T Scholar and the President's Scholars of Excellence, are automatic consideration no matter your status in Canada, no matter kind of what system of education you're doing. We'll look at students that apply. In addition to that, Canadian students applying from a Canadian high school have access to the awards profile, and you'll see it on your Join U of T portal. Canadian students should also be aware of the National Scholarship. This is the largest scholarship that we have available to Canadian students. It covers the cost of tuition for 4 years as well as living expenses, and its counterpart for international students is the Pearson Lester B. Pearson International Scholarship. So with these 2, they exist outside of the normal timeline. Students are encouraged to look into them. At this point, I'd be looking into them right now to see if you qualify for them and kind of go down that process. You can see all of our awards at awardexplorer.utoronto.ca. It's a really great list of everything that we offer across the 4 years of study and even into graduate studies. And then, of course, OSAP is the Ontario Ontario Student Assistance Program. So students in Ontario should look at OSAP as a source of funding, and anyone who qualifies for OSAP is also then considered for the University of Toronto's financial aid program, which is geared towards Canadian students. So being a public institution, we're kind of geared. Most of our funding, when it comes to need-based funding, goes towards Canadian students. So UTAPS is not on your application. It is not a part of your offer. It's a form that you complete once you're admitted to the University of Toronto if you're outside of Ontario. And if you're in Ontario and you've applied to OSAP, you'll automatically be considered. Okay, I said that was the last slide, but I have one more slide with just a couple last tips. So the first thing, submit your application early. The earliest you can is always better. I wouldn't panic for Ontario students if you can't submit it in November. That's completely okay. December will be fine to submit your application. Check your email regularly, check your Join U of T portal on a regular basis. Once or twice a week should be sufficient, just so you know what's happening with your application and you can provide things in a timely manner if we have to require more information or if we need more information. And then, of course, March 31st is the deadline to indicate interest in residence. There's no financial commitment, just letting us know to hold a spot for you in the process. Now, I know there are a number of folks studying outside of Canada that might need to, or applying to us from outside of Canada that might need a study permit to study with us here at U of T. We're not able to speak towards immigration matters, but there are resources available online. So the Government of Canada's website is the best place to start. A couple things to know: if you're approved, you could stay in Canada and, students who want to work in Canada post-graduation need to apply for a post-graduation work permit after they graduate, about 90 days after they complete their degree requirements. And when approved, you have the opportunity to stay and work in Canada for up to 3 years. Again, all of this information, the full details, the application process for the study permit and the student visa is on the Government of Canada website, and I'm going to direct you there for all of your questions about that. With that, I'd love to turn to some of your questions from the chat. I'm seeing there are 30 questions. We have about 3 minutes. We're going to answer 10 questions per minute. Hi, Kiara. How are you?
Hi, Floyd. I'm great. How are you?
Good.
What a great session. So much good information. I know we do have a bunch of questions here, but I think we've selected a few that we want to get answered just in our last few minutes left. I know you said 10 per minute, so we'll see about that. That's a hefty goal. All right, I'll start by reading out some questions for you. I think the first one we have here is asking how we would compare the environment or the atmosphere of the 3 different campuses.
Yeah, the biggest difference, as I said, was their actual physical location. So U of T St. George is in downtown Toronto. It is your city campus, your urban campus. City streets run through campus. It's like a 5-minute walk to food and restaurants that are just off campus. So if you were looking to study in a metropolitan city, St. George might be a really good fit. U of T Scarborough is about 30 minutes east, as I mentioned. A little bit quieter when it comes to the number of students on campus, but there's a ton of space. So Natasha was saying that that's the largest campus that we have when it comes to the physical footprint. So if you were looking for a smaller community, maybe a little bit slower of a pace, just, cities are busy and that stuff. But if you were looking for something that's a little bit more set back from the city, then U of T Scarborough might be a better fit. If you're looking for a smaller community, U of T Scarborough might be a better fit. And similarly, U of T Mississauga in the same vein. If you're looking for a smaller community that's a little more set back from the city around it, a little bit more of the stereotypical collegiate view of what a campus looks like, both U of T Scarborough and Mississauga kind of match that, whereas St. George is right downtown. So really kind of benefiting the style of university or school you're looking for. Again, the quality, your access to resources. I know I talked about, or Natasha would have talked about research, and I talked about some programming. Your access to resources is the same. The quality is the same, and you graduate with the same U of T degree. Students, again, you'll find all types of students at all 3 campuses. So from that kind of lens, there isn't one that's, for a particular style of student versus the other.
Absolutely, for sure. No wrong choice. They're all great options and all have their own unique atmosphere that they offer. We've got another question here that's asking about how you build your own degree, if that's something you need to apply to a different faculty or program, or if that comes with any program that's offered at U of T.
Yeah, so when you're building your degree, typically it's linked to your faculty. So when I was talking about your specialist majors and minors, that's typically within the Faculty of Arts and Science. sorry, I was doing this. Within the Faculty of Arts and Science, students in engineering, in architectural and visual studies, music and kinesiology can take courses within the Faculty of Arts and Science, but it doesn't typically work the other way, only because the other four are a lot smaller and would just be inundated with arts and science students kind of taking their courses outside. The application process, no, you don't apply to your specific program area from high school or from outside of the university. You would apply to that admission category. And at the end of your first year is when you declare which specific area you want to go into. If you were in engineering and wanted to do a minor in arts and science, it's again in second year, going into that second year is when you declare it.
Excellent. And we have a follow-up question about that, actually, about getting into your program area after your first year. One student is mentioning that they heard you can only get into your chosen major with really high marks. And if not, you'd have to take general courses again and apply in second year. Can you clarify how that process works once you're in your general program and then applying for a major?
Yeah, so it depends on what you want to study. So at U of T, there are two kind of major types of courses or programs, especially in arts and sciences. So what I'm going to say is very specific to arts and science. It doesn't as much apply to engineering, architectural studies, music, and kin. So if you were studying arts, business, and science, typically there are general or open programs of study where the requirements needed are a little more laxed or a little more relaxed. And then there are more restricted courses or programs. So restricted programs tend to be specialists, tend to be programs that are quite competitive, like, or competitive in that there aren't as many spaces, like Rotman Commerce, or they kind of have really strict requirements to going in. So sorry, for looking at like the life sciences, off the top of my head, I want to say human biology, neuroscience, for example, is a very small niche area of study where we can't have, 400 students in first year or from a single year studying that particular area of study. So yes, there are specific requirements that you need to meet at the end of your first year to go into a particular program. Some are a little more restrictive to ensure that the quality within that program, your access to resources stays the same within that field of study. So that kind of information will be in something called an academic calendar, and students in your first year, when you're selecting your courses, you can actually go in and see what those restrictions or what those requirements are. Typically, in my experience, even with the more specialized programs, the ones that are in that limited enrollment, I think is the actual term, not restricted. Limited enrollment programs, the requirements aren't excessively high, so it's not like you have to get A's only. There are spaces for you to, have a first year and slump a little if you need to.
For sure, absolutely. Now, I know we're almost out of time here, so I think this is going to be our last kind of set of questions. We have been getting some questions asking about recommendations from high school teachers, how that plays into the process, and if we look at extracurricular activities, if that plays a role in admissions as well. So maybe we can touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So recommendation letters, we do not read. Save yourself and your teachers, your principals, your guidance counselors, your student service advisors the time. We're not going to look at them. It's not a part of our consideration in the application at all. Again, we don't offer or we don't require general essays for any of our programs. So students applying, when there is a supplemental application, it's very specific to your area of study. So Rotman Commerce, for example, students are doing a written response and a video response. One is asking about, or both are asking about your leadership experiences, why you want to do business, and an opportunity to get to know you. So there are very specific prompts and you're responding to those specific prompts. Same thing with any of the other the other supplemental applications. There are specific prompts that you're responding to. It's not just like a general tell us about yourself in an open format. There are some guides that you're responding to, and any of them that require you to list your extracurriculars. We typically just need a person that can validate that, yes, you did this for this amount of time. We don't need a whole letter of reference from them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Floyd. I think, unfortunately, we're out of time for questions right now. We do have another session that's going to be starting in about 10 minutes. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and Floyd for leading an amazing session, answering all those great questions, a ton of great information for sure.